Saya stop dulu. Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Elisha. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good afternoon. Welcome back to our HOTS assessment webinar series, and this is our third webinar series. And I am Siti Nur Ashurazna from Dietetics Department, and I will be responsible for hosting this webinar today. And first of all, I would like to thank the TDSK office led by Associate Prof. Dr. Barakatunisa in collaboration with the Academic Development Unit and Mariu for organizing this webinar. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are very lucky today to have a very knowledgeable and experienced guest speaker, Dr. Ahmad Salahuddin Muhammad Harisuddin. And before we start, allow me to give a brief introduction about Dr. Salahuddin. Dr. Salahuddin Harisuddin is a senior lecturer from the Department of Aerospace of Engineering, UPM, and he is currently teaching space engineering subjects including mathematics and aerospace design. For your information, he is a recipient of several teaching awards from the Anugerah Fellowship Naib Chancellor and in teaching and learning innovation competitions. He is currently the chairman of the Engineering Education Interest Group of UPM and also a member of the Society of Engineering Education Malaysia. His topic today is based on a guidebook which he and his team wrote last year for the Faculty of Engineering on how to conduct online examinations. He believed that the nature of assessment is changing and we as educators have to write and type. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Salahuddin to deliver his topic today. Dr. Salahuddin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Siti Nur Ashurazna. And firstly, I would like to thank Fakulti FPSK Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan for the invitation, and Dr. Raj for actually approaching me first time, I think a couple of weeks ago, and the organizers. So allow me to share my screen first. Let's see if this can be done. Hopefully, yes. Okay. So it looks like. So this is the topic of the talk today, and I believe this is part of the 4 lecture series on HOTS assessment, penaksiran yang hangat atau penaksiran yang pedas, HOTS assessment, higher order thinking skills. Yeah. I think this is a good time, high time to actually highlight this topic, especially in higher education. So my talk today is based on a book a guidebook that we've developed for Faculty of Engineering, and hopefully some of our what we're trying to do here, we can share it with other faculty as well. So again, thank you, Faculty FPSK, for reaching us out. Hold on, let me see. Okay, so outcomes today is just simple, 3 things. We need to identify strategies of designing questions for open resource exam, share experiences and ideas. I think this is what we are, I'm aiming to do in each talk like this. We share experiences, we share ideas, and we need to respond to the current needs of higher education, especially in terms of assessments. Assessment doesn't mean that only the alternative assessment, but also in exams, summative assessment, formative assessment, like that. So my aim is today we look into how we can look into, wait a second, e-examination mostly. How to actually design our question so that it fits into this e-exam format. I'm not talking about putting your exam on Putra Blast or Google Form. No, I'm talking about the design of the questions in the exam itself. And how to create a Google-proof questions, because we are worried that when students are connected to the internet, they'll try to find answers on Google and paste it on your manuscript, and then hopefully they will hopeful they get the full marks. So let's try and find ways to create Google proof questions. Assessing HOTS, of course, that's the theme. Let students use tech. So this approach is different. We let students use whatever they can, whatever they want, softwares, any tools or anything, so that they can answer the exam question. So how do we design such assessment where they can actually use whatever they want to help them answer the exam questions? Okay, and then finally, hopefully we will discuss some issues on online cheating. But although it's not a new issue, but we like to talk about it. Okay, so let me start with the reason why we're doing this. Can't say for the other lecturers, but for me at least, it's a commitment to authentic assessment. And one of the authentic assessment that we are looking into currently is the exams, the final summative assessment. You might be really familiar with closed book exam, no books, no cheat sheet, no toyol. There will be invigilators, pengawas peperiksaan. It will be done in exam hall, classroom, and sometimes you can use calculator, sometimes you can't. Like in engineering, there's a specific ban for certain tests for graphing calculator. And then I think some of you are familiar with open book exam, where students can open book and bring their cheat sheets, but still they have invigilators done in the exam hall classroom. But now, because of the pandemic, so this is not possible anymore. Okay, there's no invigilators. We are not doing exams in classroom or hall. So we have to do in online. And open resource exam, for my definition, is it's an open book and open notes. Students can bring cheat sheets. Students can use websites, Google, anything they want to find, and students can use any external tools that you allow them to. For example, Excel spreadsheet, or any MATLAB software, or SPSS, for example, for statistical use, or any other software. We allow them to use it as long as if it can help you to answer your question. Okay, but let me be really clear what is actually allowed and not allowed in open resource exam. Okay, what's permitted is, of course, we've discussed it before, this one. But what's not permitted is communication with any other person. This is one. Because usually we want this final summative evaluation or assessment to be an individual one. So they cannot really help each other. We want to test each one of our students. There is no such thing as crowdsourcing support, because I'm sure you have heard of CHAG before, or some forum. There are more names of, I forgot already. But I think the most popular one was CHAG. I mean, the way they do it is they post up the question in a forum and let anybody in the world answer that question for them. So what they do is just copy them back and then send it as the exam manuscript. So that is not allowed in open resource exam. And incorporate work of others. I think this is also a given. Plagiarism is basically a no. Okay, copy pasting other essays and then send it on your own. So these are what is not permitted, and on the right side, the blue one is what is permitted. So let's be clear on the definition of what is open resource exam. Open resource means all kind of resources, whether it's notes, books, cheat sheets, web, external tools. And there are some things also that are not permitted. Okay, this has been talked about a lot during the past few years, and it's been ramped up since the pandemic. I took the if you notice, you may connect to internet, so I kind of like this title. So I told the organizer, you know what, can we put that phrase in there? I think I like it. And University Adelaide also, they were discussing about open resource exam. They're using the same language also. What's so good about open resource exam, open book exam? Why not we just stick to the traditional thing? Well, there are several papers in the literature, actually many papers, but I just put this one example here that shows that open book, open web exam is it's better suited to a student's learning style. One, we can actually try to attain quality learning outcomes from open book, open web exam. Exam content is more engaging. It's not anymore tembak or teka soalan, all that. And also it's format relevant to business, professional education, real world out there. And then what about the bad side of open book, open web exam? Well, there are more, but one of the most popular one is a student will spend less time preparing for the exam. Usually, I think you probably have the experience as well. Students they spend less time preparing because they thought, you know what, everything is in a book. What I will do is just sit in my exam, flip on the pages, flip on my notebook. Hopefully I will find the answer and then just copy the answer. So that's one of the minor downside of open book, open web exam. And notice also they're spending more time on learning and responding to the exam. So if you think before the traditional kind of exam, whether it's closed book exam, probably they need to take 2 hours. For open book exam, open resource exam, keep in mind that they will need more time to answer. So I think in my faculty of engineering, we are doing we're telling the lecturers that try to do your exam in 3 hours minimum. You can go more, but minimum 3 hours, just to make sure you assess them correctly and you give ample time for them to actually respond to your question. Okay, so that's basically. Oh wait, all right. The idea of open resource exam. Plus, why are we talking about designing questions rather than talking about how to get students to not cheat and everything? But there's an author he's also a teacher, Doug Johnson. Well, he mentioned that developing better research and test questions are better than trying to set up trap for our students. And I agree with him, so that's why I put a quote from him from here. So in short, to thwart online cheating, I think it's better for us to design better questions rather than trying to catch our students doing violating the academic on the code, something like that. Okay. So let's start on the core of our presentation today. So it's about constructing student summative assessment. That's the meat of it. And to think, when you're thinking about assessment, it's all about the outcomes. We've been following the philosophy of outcome-based education for so long. We are familiar with the concept of constructive alignment. Your outcome, you set your outcome first, and then you do the assessment. The assessment is supposed to be aligned with the outcome. It's supposed to measure certain things. It's supposed to evaluate certain things. So it's all about the outcomes. We need to construct instruments that measure students' attainment. So that's what we're doing today. And let me start straight away for the general ideas and consideration if you are doing an exam, a test. These consideration ideas, I collected these 4 points from a book by Professor Felder and Brandt. He's a famous engineering educator, chemical engineers. So this is the book, if you can see it. Yeah. Okay, and what he was saying is this. Okay, if you are designing the test or exams, design only 10 to 20% to be HOTS. It's about that. Why not more or why not less? Because if you do more, then the test loses some ability to distinguish between levels of mastery. Distinguish between your B and C student, or C and D students, for example, or even your A and B students. You cannot really distinguish. It is just maybe everyone will get, either you get an A or fail. So if you do too much of that 20%, more than 20%, then you might have more of your class on the C side, B side. So you want to get our bell curve like sit nicely in the middle. So this is his rationale of why we're doing this. Guideline for exam duration. If you're doing an exam question, for example, you try to answer it yourself. Try multiply that time by 3. So let's say you have a question, you do it yourself, you can finish it in 10 minutes, for example. You know, times it by 3 or maybe by 5. So if you can do it in 10 minutes, give your students like 30 to 50 minutes to do it. So that's one of the guidelines, because we know we are better than them. We're familiar with the subject, we're familiar with our own question, but students are not. No matter how brilliant they think they are, they need more time. And then these are some of the general ideas on how to construct a question. I think FBSK, medical science kesehatan, I think you are famous for your type of question. You have a lot of real world cases type of question, problem based scenarios. So this is what I really admire from lecturers from faculty science, faculty perubatan kesehatan. So I think you're more familiar than this. Okay, and then of course this is what we are doing today. So let me move on to the next one. Let's see if you have any questions. Just type on the chat. I'll probably check it regularly. Oh yeah, there you go. Are we going to get the lecture note or the recorded lecture? Hold on, my internet connection. Okay, yeah, I think you can. Yes, the webinar secretary will share it later. Okay, I think I've also given the link to this presentation to I think the secretariat. Maybe you can share it later. Okay, so I think you have seen this one. We're familiar with this. We are familiar with, I don't know if you can see my camera. You know this, right? Saya panggil ni hexagon ajaib. Sebab nak buka-buka dia pun susah kan ni. Dalam ni semua ada, all the cognitive level, lower order thinking skills, the verbs that you need to use. Okay, you can get this from Kate. Okay, so usually what we are doing, we want to try to get this level, analyzing and upward. Okay, this one can be done also in exam. I like this type of questions because it covers it's quick. You can have like 5 questions, short questions about remembering, understanding, applying, but it can cover the whole syllabus really quickly. So it has its own purpose. So it doesn't mean that you need to go all hearts and not lots. Okay, but we have to think about what kind of question. For example, maybe MCQ, multiple choice question, is more suitable for this. And then maybe a project will be more suitable for this side, or maybe take-home exam here. Okay, but what's important is if you go further, then you will need open resource exam. If you're doing this as an exam, you need the students to be able to get all the resources they want. So that is what we want to do. You might have seen this one. Let me show you. I would say this is a 2D or maybe 3D if you think about it. Bloom's taxonomy. We are familiar with this dimension only, remember C1, C2, C3, C4, so on and so forth. Okay, but this model, it adds another dimension, which is called the knowledge dimension. Okay, factual, like recalling facts, conceptual, procedural, metacognitive. Okay, let me give you an example. Probably the apply question analysis question is the most, I think, what we're doing for our class. Okay, so for example, if you look at analyze, what is something that is an assessment that asks student to analyze, but it's on just the knowledge dimension. So analyze something factual, complete list of activities, most complete list of ingredients for a recipe, for example. If you take this out, what's going to happen? If you add this, what's going to happen? So that's analysis in the factual dimension. And then a higher dimension still is differentiate, for example, high and low culture, for example, yeah, analyzing that. Or and then move on higher procedural, how to do something, methods of inquiry, criteria for using skills, algorithms, techniques, and methods. Integrate compliance with regulations. We, for example, I like to use my own example. Engineering, we have a lot of procedures, codes, and stuff like that. So we like to do something like this, integrate. So this is analyze also, but you will have different dimension here. This construct one biases. This is probably related to maybe social sciences or humanities course. Maybe you want to look into that. But what I'm trying to show you here, although you have, I think you will agree to this also, although you have that C1, C2, C3, and so forth, you will also have, you will agree that you have also a certain dimension. There are assessments that ask students to apply, but the difficulty or the knowledge dimension is different. Okay, so this perhaps will be useful for you if you want to start thinking about how to design a question, but I wouldn't really go deep into this. But let's get into the how to actually build the question. So let's go for exam straight away. So exam questions. Believe it or not, there are only two types of test items, two types of exam question, no matter how we think about it. There's objective, okay? We rather call it MCQ or true and false. And what we call constructed response. That means students will have more personalized answer. They don't need to choose the answer that you're given, the choice that you're given as an answer, but they construct their own response. So this is what we call that. So this includes essays, short answer questions, experiments, for example, so included in there. So there are pros and cons. Why objective? I like objective questions because, you know, when we are dealing with a lot of students and we're dealing online, it really facilitates automated grading. I think that's the best feature of objective kind of questions. And also another one, it covers the breadth quickly. Just now I mentioned that, you know, sometimes you can you can design 20 multiple choice questions which covers the whole syllabus. So it covers the breadth. Whereas if you ask an essay question, for example, or constructive question, you go deep into one aspect of your curriculum, one subject. So you don't have, you cannot cover everything deep enough with objective, but you know, with construct response, you can only cover deep enough, but not wide enough. But again, contrary to popular belief, objective question is actually hard to write. You'll spend more time building MCQs rather than building essay question, for example. Okay, and of course, it cannot assess C6. Although some argue that you can actually use that to assess C5 evaluation. We'll see some of the examples later on. But again, constructed response are the, I think most of you are familiar with that, like this. But you will see the problem will not come from constructing the question. The problem will come later. After the students answer your question, then you'll get hundreds of essay to grade. That's where the problem comes. So I will say be moderate with constructed response kind of question. I think we all experienced that, yeah. Okay, but let's, I want to start with the objective questions first. I really like this because I really like to talk about this because used to, you know, alah, objektif senang lah, student boleh tembak nanti dia dapat jawab, ataupun you know, it's just teka-teka and then dapat jawapan. But statistically, I mean, it's actually quite hard to just teka semua and dapat A. But anyway, I really want to talk about this because I know because my wife is among you know about this, medical doctors among you know about this. And the first part, I think it's all It's all objectives. So that one is being used as the world standard, I would say. And it's objective. So there's actually nothing wrong with objective, the format. Um, Objective test items. Okay, if you're not sold on this one, let me do my pitch first. Why objective questions has its own strength. Okay, there are many types of objective test items: fill in the blanks, true or false, matching, short answer, multiple choice question, and the new one, multiple true and false. I'm not looking at this. I'm not looking at true and false. I'm not looking matching, short answer. You can do this for formative assessment, you know, after your class, after a long lecture or in the middle of long lecture. Yeah, you can do this formative assessment. But for summative assessment, let's look into these three. Okay, these two. Multiple choice question and what we call multiple true and false. Okay. I really like to use this reference here for if I were to remind myself on how to actually write a good MCQ question. I will use this here. So maybe you can go here later. Satu prinsip, apakah what makes a good MCQ? It avoids diverting good students away from the correct response, and at the same time, it have to clue poor students toward correct response. So this is the idea of a good MCQ. It's philosophical, but it's good to keep that in mind. Okay, and if you are worried about what we usually call tembak, tembak ni main teka je lah, main teka je and then dapat jawapan betul. Multiple choice like soalan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, supaya kalau tembak makan sikit. But I would suggest what we call negative marking. Negative marking is this. Not good.
Betul salah.
Students will get 1 mark.
Betul salah.
Incorrect answer.
Betul salah. Your
Yeah.
internet is not stable. You are breaking up. Mula betul salah.
Internet ni Yes, dengar.
Breaking. Dia breaking up.
Okay. Tak apa, saya berhenti kejap. Kadang-kadang dia okay. Alamak, breaking up ke? Kalau dah okay, beritahu saya.
Okay.
Okay, I'll wait.
Internet.
Okay. Saya sambung balik. Sometimes dia take a while je. Okay,
Okay. Better.
Better,
Okay. Get off.
Okay.
Get off video.
All right. Thank you for letting me know because it sometimes happen. I don't know why. Dia macam awkward. Anywho, I was talking about sekali lagi. Okay. Hopefully it's better now. What negative marking? You can choices. Okay, 5 choices. Plus
Betul salah.
1 mark.
It's clear.
Okay, if it's incorrect, you get minus quarter mark. And if it's unattempted, you'll get 0 marks.
Dr. Salah, I think still breaking. Right, Dr. Salah.
Tunggu reda. Okay, but I see you're okay. So, all right. Hopefully it's okay. Boleh nampak chat saya? Okay. Yeah, sure, Dr. Elisha. Okay. Let me explain the negative marking. All right. Negative marking is this. Let's say you have, let me show you a new, maybe I'll okay. I'm trying to restart my, sorry about this. I didn't expect my connection to be this bad around this time. Okay. Familiar with negative marking, and am I still breaking up? Dr. Siti not Ashura.
Okay, better.
Or is it okay now?
Okay,
all right.
Okay, now.
Negative
better.
marking is, let's say you have a question and then you have 5 choices, A, B, D, C, E. A, B, C, D, E. Okay. When students get correct, you award them +1. If the students got incorrect, you minus quarter. And if it's unattempted, that means the student didn't answer that question, you give them 0. Okay, so this is to avoid guesswork. Let the students know, because then the student will avoid trying to guess lah. They know if they guess and guess it wrong, they will get minus quarter. Instead, if they just leave it unanswered, they'll just get 0. So I think there's a form, this numbering +1 for multiple choice, but I don't remember that. But usually what I will do, the common practice is, if you have 5 multiple choices, you employ this. +1 for correct, minus quarter for incorrect. Okay, that's negative marking. Another type of MCQ that I really want you to try is what we call multiple true and false. Not many people know, well, relatively, it's better than MCQ. This is better than MCQ. Okay, multiple true and false. It's used because they are doing online tests, so they use this a lot. So what is multiple true and false? I will explain later. Hopefully we can see it here. Okay, I think MCQ is pretty much everyone kind of know what it. Oh man, I was breaking up just now, didn't I? I'll continue. MCQ. I'm just going to not to explain too deep, but I'm just going to explain to you what is actually a good MCQ, which is true and false is obsolete in our program.
Dr. Salah?
Yeah.
Okay. Still breaking.
Yeah. Okay.
Aha.
Alright. Kejap. Saya rasa macam ni. Saya masih breaking lagi ke? Adakah saya masih breaking up?
Yang ni now it okay lah, tapi tadi for the audio tadi.
Okay, Assalamualaikum everyone. I'm back. I just changed my Wi-Fi just now.
Okay, alright.
Hopefully it will be better. Hopefully it will be better. Minta maaf.
It's okay.
Minta maaf.
It's okay. Common.
Okay. So just now I received a comment that multiple true and false is obsolete in your program. Okay. I will explain it anyway. Okay. But before I will explain multiple true and false, I will explain about objective MCQ first. Okay. I don't want to talk too deep into this, but I just want to talk about interpretive exercise. This is a good practice in MCQ. So how to guarantee your MCQ assess HOTS? Okay. So use what we call interpretive exercise. So what is it is you will have a stimulant, what we call a stimulant. Or sometimes you call that, it can be a graph, it can be a diagram, chart, or even like a scenario, or a video, okay? And then your question is based on that stimulant, on that stimulus, not stimulant, stimulus. Okay, stimulant being a different meaning. This is better because instead of a question like without any stimulus, usually those kind of generic questions you can find on Google, believe it or not. It's better to give students a chart, for example, and then ask questions based on that chart. So one thing, it's Google proof. It's guaranteed to be Google proof because the chart is yours, one thing, and you ask question about that chart. It's really hard to actually Google the same question. Okay, an example here. I don't teach biology, but it's a question for biology course. Biology course, I got it from Nielsen. Scenario based. So this is the stimulus. This is what we call the stimulus. It's given a scenario. One day you meet a student watching a paralyzed grasshopper down a small hole in the ground, where when asked what he's doing, he replies, "I'm watching the wasp store paralyzed grasshoppers in her nest to feed her offspring." From this one stimulus alone, I can construct 4 questions. Okay. This one here, for example, which are following best describes reply, not careful observer. This is the answer. If you're wondering, I put an asterisk here. This is the question. So what I'm doing here is I use this stimulus to create a couple of MCQs, and this is the best practice because you can be sure that students have to actually understand what's going on, apply his knowledge on what is going on, analyze what is going on here. Okay, a wasp drag a paralyzed grasshopper down the small hole. He has to analyze this situation, picture the situation, think of what's missing and what's not missing before he or she will be able to answer these questions. So you can be sure this is HOTS already. Okay. Instead of asking like a calculation question, for example. So those are probably lots. But with interpretive exercise, you can be sure that you will you'll assess the higher order thinking skills. So this is one example. So you can screenshot this and then for your reference later on. I have more examples of this, but let me see in the chat room. There's some question. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so you can do whatever you want, but the idea is have a stimulus and have one or more questions based on that stimulus. I do this a lot for my calculus class. So that way, you know, they cannot just, you know, copy and paste the question in Google and get answers. Now, let's see if the question, if you have any question on interpretive exercise first, let's delay that later because I want to talk about the objective multiple true and false. It's different, yeah, from true and false and multiple true and false. Okay, so here I'm just re-explaining again why multiple true and false is a really strong objective question. Let me show you an example here. Okay, this is an example of a multiple true and false question. This for my test one for my orbital mechanics class. Okay, so basically the idea is, if I can just explain it simply, is if you have something like this, like check all that apply, which of these statements are true or may have more than one answer. So for example, this one I'm asking about Kepler's second law. If you're studying astronomy or space engineering, probably you're familiar with Kepler or mathematics. I'm asking which of these statements is explained by Kepler's second law. Okay, it may contain more than one answer. So if the students just answer one, so they might not get full mark. Okay, if they answer just 2 out of 3, for example, they still get not a full mark. So the idea is to get all the answers correct. For example, this is right now is this is the correct answer. Only the third option is wrong. So students need to actually check all that, the correct answer, and then they will get the full mark, which is in here is 1 point. Okay. So this is what we call multiple true and false. There could be more than one answer. Okay, but this is really different from, I think you're familiar with this one, like 1 and 2 is correct, 2, 3, and 4 is correct, or all of the above is correct. This is different. Here we are giving the options already. Okay, but the true multiple true and false questions is you have more than one answer. Students need to know all the correct answers. And I believe, and not only is my belief, that I think that there's a lot of report as well in the literature that this is one of the most powerful method to check students understanding, grasp of the concept from your course. Because if they don't really understand it, then they wouldn't get this correctly. It's not the matter of choosing the one right answer, but choosing the correct answers. It might be all, it might be one, it might be none. Okay, so this is an example of multiple true and false. Okay, before we take a break, I will show you some of the examples of interpretive exercise. One, multiple true and false, a combination of multiple true and false with the exercise. This is a new one. I'll explain later, but let's look at this tree first. So this is, I put it here. So, Doktor nampak ini ya? Saya tukar tab Microsoft.
Nampak.
Okay. So this is an example for a statistic-based course. Okay, interpretive exercise. Okay, interpretive exercise. So I give a scenario and I'll develop questions based on this scenario. So for sure, students need to understand the scenario, analyze the scenario before being able to answer these questions. So just give an example, Zila. 2 researchers studying relationship between amount of sleep each night, calories burned on an exercise bike for 42 men women. So typical research lah. Okay, they were interested, slept more energy to use, and they obtained correlation of 0.28, has a two-tailed probability of 0.08, alpha was 0.10. Okay, so from this stimulus, I set up questions. What is an example of properly written resource question, for example? That could be one question, good question, I think. What is the correct term for variable amount of sleep? So it's based on, instead of asking the definition, what is dependent variable? What is an independent variable? You can do this instead. Give a scenario, ask the students. So in this case, what is amount of sleep? What is that? Dependent, independent? So it's an alternative for question that ask for definitions. Okay. What is the correct statistical null hypothesis? You can ask anything, but these are just some examples. Okay. Okay. I think I made like 5 questions here. What conclusions you should draw regarding the null hypothesis? Accept, reject. What conclusions should you draw regarding this study? So this is an example of an interpretive exercise. If you have like a statistical or research-based course, you can do this example. Okay. So this is an example of interpretive exercise. Next, I will show you examples of multiple true and false. Okay. Again, it's different from just the true and false. Yeah. Ask, is it true or false? Give a statement. Is it true and false? Give a statement. Is it true and false? No. Multiple true and false is what I've explained you before just now. So an example here. This is one example. When constructing a completion fill in the blank test item, it is recommended that you. This is I think education question. Okay, which is correct? Okay, allow 30 seconds. I forgot what's the answer for this one, but students can choose more than one answer, something like that. Okay. All right. Let me give you a more familiar one. I think I've seen some of you from faculty science before. So this is an example of question from a machine learning. This is just a simple regression analysis. So it's a combination of interpretive exercise and also multiple true and false. So I give a stimulant. So this is the stimulus. Okay, a table and a graph. Okay, and then just by giving that, my question is just this: which of the following statements are true? Check all that apply. All right. So students need to actually understand what's being given to them from the stimulus and then try to pick the best answers. Okay, so this is probably not true. Linear regression, well, that time not true, I think, because this is everywhere. Adding polynomials, maybe we'll answer yes. Better fit the data. Wait. I think this is, maybe that's true. All right. So this is an example of where you combine the two, multiple true and false and interpretive. Okay. And okay, this is another example which I think I will show you later. Okay, I think we've covered quite a lot, 40 minutes. Let's try and stop the lecture now and try to take a break. Maybe we can answer some question, or if you want to share something that you've done in your class in the chat room, or you might want to discuss it out with us. Okay. Question from Professor Technologist Dr. Chia Yok Queen. The MCQ marking auto or manual? For me, if I use Microsoft Forms or Google Forms or Putra Blast, it's auto. Yes, everything is automated. That's the one thing I think why I like to use multiple choice questions, because if I have like 60 students, then I'll just automate everything. Better for me, better for our mental health as well. Yeah, you can do that automated grading if you're using Google Form, Microsoft Form, or Putra Blast. My personal choice, I like Microsoft Forms because it works well with math equations. Like if you want to type out math equations, it works really well. I can be free and type whatever I want, complex matrix lah, whatever. But in terms of ease of use, Google Form. In terms of flexibility, Putra Blast. Like the quiz in Putra Blast is really flexible. You can do anything, negative marking, half point marking, whatever you can think of. It's really flexible. But for me, I think it sometimes gets too overwhelming. So I just choose the quickest way to design my question. I use Microsoft Form. What is the highest level we can achieve by MCQ format? That's actually a good question. Okay, I tried to find that answer here from this book. I don't know if my camera is on. Okay, I have this book with me, Teaching and Learning STEM, a practical guide. Okay, let me turn on my, or maybe I can't start video. Okay, all right. I have this book with me. Actually, it mentions here that actually with MCQ, a good, a well-designed MCQ can actually assess up to evaluation C5. Obviously, it cannot do creativity. Obviously, that's obvious. So if you're looking to creativity, I think you should maybe look for projects or take-home exams, something like that. But the author argues here that you can actually go up to evaluation. Analysis, of course. Oh, yes, sure. Let me type it out here. I really like this book. It's Teaching and Learning STEM, a practical guide by the author is Richard Felder and Rebecca Brandt. Okay, these guys are chemical engineers. Actually, I bought the book by accident. I saw the book in Kinokuniya, and then I thought, hey, I know that guy, Richard Felder, and hey, you know what? Just buy it. And then it turns out that I use this the most. It mentions that you can actually get up until evaluation, but obviously you cannot do C6 with a multiple choice question. Yes, but analysis nak kacang lah, interpretive exercise tadi, I think you know how to actually give evaluation type of question. By the way,
we have questions in chat box from Associate Prof. Dr. Barakatunisa awal-awal tadi. What is the students' capabilities in answering HOTS? Do you have specific answer scheme for HOTS?
What is the students' capabilities in answering HOTS? Do you have specific answer scheme for HOTS? Okay, yes. You know what? If you're talking about answer schemes, like for example, you give them a question and then you have your own answer schemes, like this is the correct answer. If the student's answer is the same as my answer scheme, then I'm going to give him full mark. Actually, no, I don't have that. And I think you may argue this, but a good HOTS question will not have any answer scheme, but they will have a good rubric in determining what's a good answer and what's not a good answer, but not answer scheme. If you have answer scheme, then that means there's only one answer to that question. So it's not open-ended. If it's not open-ended, then most probably it's a simple question. The student just need to remember certain correct information to be able to answer. So in my opinion, if it's a HOTS question, it shouldn't have an answer scheme. It shouldn't have one answer. It should have instead a rubric. Actually, I have part of my lecture today that there's a part on rubric, how to actually create rubrics to help you with grading HOTS type of question. I hope that answers the question. It was so long ago. Sorry, I didn't. How to determine a good rubric, Dr. Salah? I don't know. I think Prof. Wong from Kate. I think a couple. I actually learned a lot from her talk last time on how to create rubric. And she was the first one who actually showed me the importance of a good rubric. I will show you how to do it later. I think I have if you have access to my presentation here, I have a part, some slides on how to do a grading rubric. I'll show you later. We can have sample answer which reflects the thinking flow for hearts. Oh yes, you can have that too. That's usually what I would do. Also, I give I give students, this is the flow. One, you have to visualize, you have to draw something, and then you have to write down the formulas, or interpret the certain physical assumptions, whatever, and then do the analysis, and then finally give your conclusions. So I have this flow chart I give the students. Look at this. If you're missing any of this, then probably I'll just minus some marks. So that could be too. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Dayang Radia is also from Faculty of Engineering. We work together a lot. So for those of you, do you have an answer for this one? Here. Alice is looking at Bob, and Bob is looking at Charlie. Alice is married and Charlie is not. Is a married person looking at an unmarried person? I'm not advocating anything here, but this is just a logic question. Dr. Mares say yes. Is it true or not? C. Charlie say C cannot be determined. I think this is a good answer to start a debate with your friends. Just what do you think is the answer? Okay. See. Okay, I will post the answer at the end of this presentation. I'll give you my reasons for it as well. I wouldn't tell you the answer yet. I have a few more actually. I have a crazy one here. Hold on. This is a crazy one. Which answer is correct? All of the below, none of the below, all of the above, one of the above, none of the above. This is another. I like just to throw this to people, and then let's have a healthy discussion on what's right or what's logical. Okay. Copy and paste this because I'm going to show you another one. Another one is this is not a really a riddle or anything, but it's just something I found. Multiple choice exams are accurate measure of one's knowledge. Yes, A and C, A and B, all of the above. So be careful, yeah, because sometimes when we are too excited doing our questions, we can actually fall into this trap. This is a joke. Okay. So if you want to attempt the question before, you can attempt it. Okay, I'll post the discussion later, not the answer, the discussion more like. Okay. So that's it for objective question. Let me go into constructed response. I think this is what we are really familiar with. If you don't use multiple choice question often, then you probably use constructed response. Constructed response doesn't only mean it's an essay. It could be like a task. So I would say there are two ways, two types of constructed response question. It's either a question, you ask something and you want an answer, or you ask students to do something. So this is to answer, then this is to do. Okay, create a program to do this, or plot this graph. So those are task description. Okay, and question, well, it's questions lah. Okay, so let me move on. Two types of response you can expect from students. One is the restricted response. One is extended response. Restricted response, that means there's only one answer. So that's restricted response lah. You have answer scheme. Okay, answer scheme. And extended response is where you put more dimensions to it. Okay, this is just some technical stuff about how some educational researchers or academicians classify types of response. Um, but what we are in this lecture now, open resource exams, what I'm advocating is we allow students to use any tools or software to answer your questions. Okay, for example, if you ask them, plot the function of x cubed, for example. And to do this, you need to plot using Excel, Microsoft Excel, for example. So that is the type of constructed response question where the student needs to use tools. And these are the type of questions the idea I'm pushing now, because exams cannot anymore rely on just pen and paper. They actually need to use the real world tool out there. So this is one example. But you got to be careful. You got to make sure students are already using the tools. It cannot be some tools that the students have never heard before. Okay. Again, it follows back to the constructive alignment philosophy, and also the student needs to be familiar. You know, I can't be asking my students to analyze data using some software that they have never seen before, like SPSS. Maybe I've never seen that before, and then I will just ask them to do that. No, that's not appropriate. So make sure they have been using that in your class, and then ask them to use that again. Okay, and also make sure that the tools is easily accessible, like Microsoft Excel. I think everyone has it. Google Map is available on if you have a browser, you can be able to use that. Wolfram Alpha is a type of calculator. If you're I think familiar with this type of simulation, mathematical. Wolfram Alpha is I think famous. And also you need to give more time allocation. Like I said before, students will take more time to answer, to respond to open resource exam questions compared to the closed book exam questions. Okay. But if it's too complicated, save it for not exam, save it for other type of assessment, that projects. Okay. If it's too complicated, yeah. But so this is where our kebijaksanaan kita lah. How to gauge whether this is suitable for 1 hour type of question, 1 hour type of task, half an hour type of task. Okay. Let me give you some example. This is the example for a course that I taught last semester. It's on aerospace design, but one of the topic was on engineering. It's not ethics. It's just it's on safety, risk safety. So the scenario is they have to fly their drones tomorrow in an area given in this coordinate. I gave them a coordinate, so they need to find that coordinate in Google Map. And then I will ask them to do some risk assessment, figure out the distance, how high they should go and stuff like that. And they need to follow the standard, the engineering standard, CAM in this case, Civil Authority of Aviation Malaysia. And then from this, they need to, so in this case, they need to use this tool, this Google Map, and they need to use the standard that's given out there by CAM, okay, and boards of engineers. And they need to use Microsoft Words to actually present their answers. So this is one type of questions where it's open web. They can refer to anything on the web. They can refer to anything on their notes, and they can use whatever tools they want. Okay, not only Google Map, but Google Map is the one that's most accessible. They can use that. So this is an example. The students really liked it. That's why I picked this example. The students mentioned to me that this is the first time that they've done something like that. They learn a lot during the exam also. Another example is this one. It's a open-ended question. Basically, it's actually from calculus. It's open web. Open tool, in this case, they need to use Wolfram Alpha. web tool for a calculator. And then I just to give some personalization, I give one number here. They can choose between these numbers, 0.3 to 0.6, some personalization. And then I ask an open-ended question at the end, so that it's assessing more of their hot skill, higher order thinking skills. There's no one answer to answer D. There's a lot of it's multidimensional. It involves a lot of stakeholders. So I really like this kind of question. So this is one example. Okay, and this is also another examples I made yesterday. I thought maybe I should give some examples that related to FPSK, so I choose this one. It's a same like before, mathematics, but with an open. I didn't give the exact numbers for that one, but they can use the external tool. Okay, so yes, this is for engineering. Actually, when I was presenting this to engineering faculty, we were talking about the graduate attributes, what kind of complex problem solving. The attribute of a problem is you must have depth of knowledge, range of conflicting requirements. So this is for engineering only, but hopefully this can be useful for you too, to assess whether your question is complex or is not really that complex. But in engineering, we have these attributes here. I think these examples are for engineering-based courses. Maybe you can read some of them here. This is an example, really generic. You can always fit this template to anything. Okay, for example, an open-ended question is design a study to test a relationship. That could be a good exam question for 2-3 hours. Ask them to do that. Or explain a specific complex phenomenon to a 12-year-old, so they can do like a video. So this is more of an authentic assessment. So there's some ideas which can be applied across faculty, not only engineering. Also, if you are thinking about asking HOTS question, I'll introduce to, I think maybe most of you know this already, about Socratic questioning. Not often you will find this in textbooks, but it will be a good guide for you to ask questions that assesses HOTS. Okay, questions that demand clarification. That means it can be a follow-up to a question. How do you say that? How does this relate to some theory? Are you going to include something like that? Questions that probe assumptions, for example, probe reasons and evidence. Because sometimes we always ask questions that are like in the textbook, ask for numbers. What is the height of such and such? What is the temperature of such and such? What is the length such and such? We ask for numbers, but that's just lower order thinking skills actually. So if you want to make sure that you ask HOTS, try one of these Socratic questioning methods. So here there's a question I want to ask. It's not absorption of drugs. This is a mistake here. Okay, this is not really absorption of drugs, but it's a question, hypothetical question. UPM lecturers met up on Zoom, discussed their problems on teaching. Lecturer from other faculty was asking, I understand the need of open-ended essays. We want to assess higher order thinking skills, but by God, I have like 100 students. Imagine how many essay questions I have to grade in 2 weeks. Question is, identify his problems and discuss one assessment strategy that could be introduced to solve his problem. You can actually ask this to your students as well. It's you give a scenario, authentic scenario. It can be in this case is in terms of people complaining to you. And then identify what is actually his problem. Based on his complaint, what is his problems? Discuss what he can do afterwards. So students will be playing the role of an advisor, or playing the role as a consultant. Let them have that role. Let's see what the answer look like. So this is an example. So let's say we have this problem. What's your answer? Okay. So I have a suggestion is for an objective question followed by a short answer response question. Okay. So for example, I have this question right here. Okay. So in this question, there's actually two correct answers, whether this and this. Yeah, these two, 10.2 or 11.2. So these two are correct, believe it or not. Based on your assumptions lah. And these two are incorrect. Okay. And then I have a follow-up question. Okay. Justify the choice you made in the previous question. Start with I choose C because you give your reason here. It serves two ways. One, students can back up the answers with some explanation. But the good thing is this. If the students answer A or D, which in my case, a wrong answer, you don't have to grade this one anymore. So you can just leave them out. It's wrong. So minus 5 points. Only grade this question when they answer this or this. So the idea is this. If you have 100 students, let's say you have 50 students answer A or D. So you don't have to answer their essays anymore. You only have 50 students to check the essays and everything. So you reduce that by 50% already based on their first answer. And then you can look at, carefully read their justification, these 50 students. So it kind of, the first question kind of tapis dulu lah. Okay, tapis yang mana dah awal lah jawab pun salah, kita tapis dah tak payah. Kita tengok yang mana jawab betul. And then we look at the justification. And then we grade again. So in a way, it's a win in the instructor. Instead of having 150 short answers to grade, we may be faced with only 15, 30, 50, which is still better. So this is my idea lah. Okay. This is an example. But I don't think, I don't know, this is more like this is more an English course, which I took from this book right here. So it might not be a good example, but I think you can get the idea from here. Question 22, question 23 is based on question 22. So if the students pick other, they can also write the explanation. So this is what I'm proposing now. Okay. Some of you might ask for like math questions. How do I do this? Math questions are usually restricted. 1 + 2 is always 3. How can you actually make an essay question out of it? Okay. In here, I'll give this part of the book, the guideline that we made before in this lecture slides. And I give some suggestions on how to actually improve your math questions so it will be more open-ended. Okay. One way is to be ambiguous. This is another example here. Okay, here instead of I'm asking about find the inverse, okay, I'll ask does the function grow, decay, or oscillate? So it requires a lot of thinking rather than just finding this here, which can be easily kicked in a calculator and then get the answer. Okay, this is an example. Or ask about vocabulary instead of asking about, for example, this one here, instead of find the amplitude A, which is easy actually. Okay, ask about something deeper. Find the amplitude and the maximum displacement of the mass with doubling the initial displacement. So I'm asking about the vocab here. Okay, so obviously students will need to have more understanding about these questions, the systems. In this case, the differential equation of a spring mass system before answering that question. So we ask deeper. So in this case, you can get more or less restricted answer from students. Another one, shift context perspective. Not only ask about algebraic perspective, but also from graphical or numerical perspective. Okay. So pelbagaikan cara student jawab. Maybe not only numbers, but you can jawab in graphical ke apa ke. Okay. Okay, so next one, I'm answering the question from Dr. Elisha and every one of you also about the grading strategies. Okay, about rubrics especially. Rubrics, not answer scheme. Okay, and there are two types of rubrics. One is holistic and one is analytical. Okay, it's a big topic on its own, but in this here, I'll give you two examples. I think I have two examples here. Okay, yeah, I'll start with analytic first lah. Analytical rubric. It's basically you'll have like a criteria. You have a descriptions here. Okay, maybe you have three descriptions here. Let's look at the other one. Ability to identify, analyze problems in complex and fuzzy situations, as well as making justified judgment. Okay, so you'll give probably 4 marks if the students will be able to do this. If it's missing some things, then probably you give 3 out of 4. Okay, if you notice that the students can not do many things, but do certain things about sederhana, you give 2 out of 4, something like that. Or tak boleh sangat, 1 out of 4. Okay, this is not indicative of the marks. It can be from 0 to 2, or you can make this from 2 to 4. This one 4 to 8, for example, and it's 8 to 10. It's up to you. But you give criteria here on what makes you give this marks to students, and you can have many descriptions lah. So this is what we call analytic. Okay, it's for any HOTS question, then I will recommend you to have a rubric so that you will be more impartial, lagi adil, dan juga students know where they are lacking. So if they get something like 2, they know, oh yeah, I was only able to develop the fine thinking skills, explaining, but I was unable to analyze the question. So the students know, you'll be more impartial to your grading, and the students will know why they get the marks they get. Okay, analytic. Another type of rubric is what we call holistic. Okay, this is for example, for essay questions. Now you read it as a whole essay, as a whole paper, for example, and then you give marks based on what criteria you've set. Okay, for example, you have, okay, this is a good paper that will get between 80 to 100 will get something like this: complete understanding, execution, objectives, clearly stated. You do your own criteria. What do you think about the best paper? One advice I'll give you on whenever you want to build rubrics like this, figure out the best paper and the worst paper first. What are their criteria? Once you got that, then the other two, the intermediaries, I think is just it's easier to do that way, rather than trying to do 4, 3, 2, 1. Try to do the extremes first. The best paper, what it will look like, the worst paper, what it will look like. And then in the middle, you can actually try to, design your own criteria. It's easier that way, to do that way. The same thing with analytical rubric also. Try to figure out the best and then the worst. Okay. So that way. Another strategy is pick the baik one. That means what do you think average student will do? What do you think average student will do? And then you'll figure out what above average will do, slightly below average will do, weak students will do. So that's another strategy. 2 strategies to create. Create the criteria, write down the criteria. Is 1, start with the extremes. Start with the best and worst. Or 2, start with the criteria of an average student. And then you build your rubric based on that one. Okay. It's been quiet for so long already. Am I still online?
Yes, you are.
It happens to me, you know. I was talking about 30 minutes and then my student sent me a WhatsApp. Doktor dah terputus dah setengah jam lah. Terus down satu hari. So assessment criteria, banyak options lah ya. I think it's important for me to give you these slides because there's a lot of points here, there's a lot of notes here. My mistake also, I didn't really prepare this slide for presentation, but more of like a notes. I'll give it this. I think maybe ask Dr. Raj. I gave Dr. Raj the link to this slide presentation. Maybe he can paste it here. I'll give it to you later. Oh yeah, thanks Dr. Raj. Okay. This is for engineering. Actually, when I prepared this presentation for engineering, they have a really good graduate attribute indicator. I think it might be useful for you also. Non-engineering is not just for engineering. I think it's useful for everyone. It's a good guide on how to create the criteria and stuff like that. I think we need some guide on how to write the criteria. So these are some examples lah. Okay. Before we end this, I think we got like 10 minutes or so. Let's do some activities lah. Decide if this is a good question. Kejap, anak saya tengah bergaduh kat bawah tu. Sekejap Okay, dah kena marah dah. So decide if this is a good question or not for an open resource exam. Okay, let's, I think this is generic enough for everyone to participate. Let's look at the first one. Define ideal gas. Given any three of the variables, P, V, T, and N for an ideal gas, calculate the, what's this? Calculate the what? The first one. So do you think it's a good question for open resource exam? What do you think? Good or bad? Let's see in the chat box. Not so. No. No. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I think that's the consensus. Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. No. Okay, second one. Explain the following statement from an American weather report in terms a first-year Malaysian student could understand. Okay, why? Because okay, the American, I tried to do the American accent. I tried that. The temperature is 75 degree Fahrenheit. Barometric pressure of 29.87 inches mercury. Humidity is 50%. Dew point is 54 Fahrenheit. So they use a lot of Fahrenheit and inches. Explain the following statement from an American weather report in terms of first-year Malaysian to understand. Still lots. What this one? No. Okay, still no. All right. Then I can agree. Just basic conversion. Yeah, basic conversion. Given the description of familiar physical phenomenon involving more than one phase, explain in terms of concept discussed in this course. Evaluate its scientific soundness. This is a generic lah. I think I didn't give the actual physical phenomenon, but it could be anything. Could be, I don't know, physical phenomena. What? Aurora, maybe. Oh, such as formula. What do you think? I think this is, yeah. I really like this one. Anyone agree with me? Oh, Dr. Armania, yeah. I think this is good. I think this give a full concept, not possible answer. Yes, not possible answer. Yes, I'll agree with this. Okay, fourth one. Following mathematical proof leads to an incorrect conclusion. Identify the flaw of the proof. Identify the flaw. This could be just one answer, but I really like the process that will go through it. So I would say this yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh, everyone agree with me. Oh yeah. Cool. Nice. Okay. All right. The next one I don't know. Okay, this one might be a bit hard. Yes, students can refer to other case study. Yeah. Number 5, an advertisement claim. I think I made this question because I saw something used. I think it was a statistic question. I saw some claim on internet. An advertisement claimed that 80% of survey respondents reported headache relief after taking ubat cap X, and only 70% reported relief after taking aspirin. List up to 10 statistic-related reasons for not immediately buying a box of ubat cap X. 10 maybe too much lah, maybe 5 lah. But if you can come up with 10, it's okay. Personally, I like this question. Personally, I would say yes, but what about the audience? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing with me. Oh, Dr. Hamdan Yusof kata find flaw ni boleh gunakan jawapan student from previous. Ya, betul. Kan? Betul juga. Copy je lah kan. Dah ada. Okay. Let them grade the answer kan. Can relate, yeah, statistics. I like question about statistics because there's a lot of statistics out there. You know, the famous saying that, you know, there are statistics and lies and statistics. So there's a lot of, especially sekarang ni pandemic COVID-19, they're talking about vaccination rate, vaccination efficacy. Pfizer 95% efficacy, AstraZeneca 65% je. Oh my god, kenapa sedikit sangat? Kita ambil Pfizer lah. But you know, if you understand what efficacy means, how vaccination, the testing they're doing, how it works, you might have different view on these numbers. So I kind of like this. Yeah, government website, other survey reports is great. It's great. You can do a lot of that. Okay, I have 4 more. I think. Yeah. Following abstract was submitted last year for a project report in this course. Tunjukkan abstract dia. Criteria we have discussed in class, assign a grade to it. In a few brief sentences, state your reasoning. I think this is an open-ended question. I kind of like this. What about you? Okay, yes. All right. Okay, yeah. A lot of people agree with me. What about number 2? This is another chemical. The bond, no, not chemical, I think biology. What is it? The bonds that hold together the 2 strands of a DNA molecule are weak covalent bonds, okay, weak hydrogen bonds, strong hydrogen bonds, strong covalent bonds, strong ionic bonds.
Straightforward. No.
Straightforward sangat ni kan. This is no lah, obvious good. MCQ, no. Okay. Oh, I think we are getting really good at this. Okay, thank you. Yeah, no. Yeah, correct. This is an engineering question, first year. A plot of velocity of a vehicle versus time is a straight line going through 4 meters per second. The distance traveled by vehicle between 5 seconds is, what do you think? For me, I will answer this as a no. It might seem difficult, but I would say no. Okay. What do you think? Lots. Yes, it is lots. It's a typical question like answer and asking for numbers. So no, yeah. Okay, this I was attempting to find a question that is related to sains kesihatan and perubatan. A patient enters a hospital emergency room with the following symptoms. List lah symptoms apa? A, B, C, D. What of the following elements is the most likely possibility? What is the first? Is this kind of what do you think? Is this kind of open-ended? Yes or no? Okay. Yes, actually, yeah. I found this type of question a lot in a medical textbook. I have a few here. I don't understand what's in it, but I kind of look into it a bit and then I try to post it to you guys. So macam real life situation, yeah, itulah Dr. Nazatul Shimon cakap macam real life situation. I think this is why I really admire the questions from the medical faculty and other faculty, science faculty as well. They have a lot of real life situation, case study, and then ask question based on that. It kind of moves away from the typical SPM question, ya, macam tadi lah, yang macam PVNRT tadi kan, ingat tak? Chemical question. It'll be hot if the case is complex. Yeah. Okay. If chest pain Q is similar to KFQ, is that for our exam? Oh, chest pain question similar to KFQ apa ya, Dr. Faiza? KFQ?
It's a key featured question.
Oh, key feature question. Hey, I think I've heard of that. Key feature
So
question.
key feature
Hey.
kita bagilah. Okay, for
Betul.
example, this man come with blah blah blah. He complained of this on examination. He's like this. You know, question one. State the most likely diagnosis with the underlying etiology. So sudah tulis je dalam tu ada 3 marks.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
why
next
I
one,
got this.
yeah, the next one you list 3 most important investigated at this stage. Kita nak most important. Memang maybe ada 10, tapi kita nak the most important that can maybe save life or relevant. So student tulis lah, is kosong, student tulis sendiri. We give 4 marks. So macam tu lah. Investigation, the next one, list 2 most important management. How you manage the patient. So patient sudah tulis lah, is free lah, dia tulis lah kan. So that is KFU, dia mesti ada key feature. Kita bagi satu feature, real case. Then the answer itulah kita bagilah makannya kan, adalah skemanya.
Ada skema je kan,
ada
yang mana kita itu okay.
Tapi
but in this case I think answer scheme is okay kan. In this case it still addresses the hearts.
Yep.
I think that's why I say key feature question. Yes, I remember that one. Okay, I think I'll put the yes in this one. Yes. Okay, and just as excuse me, I think we've already at the end of our lecture today, but the rest are not really it's just want to discuss je lah, sembang-sembang je. Tapi kira nak dinner apa, betul lah tu lah. Saya nak kena order Grab ni. Okay. Just show you this story je. It's nothing. I just want to show you this story about students who try to cheat. Bacalah dulu. Because I think I caught some of my students are using Chag to answer my the reason I caught that because I set some kind of trap lah, similar to this one. So that's why I found this so interesting. So what do you think? Would you do this? Ini memang lah. Saya pun ada try jugalah. But the way I did it is I took a familiar question, I took a question from the book. It started out the same, but at the end I was asking a different thing. Tapi students, dia nampak first few paragraphs tu, dia terus ingat tu soalan sama, so dia copy balik jawapan tu. So that's how I caught them using Chag. Not as complicated as this one lah, but it's a but this is just a story lah. I wouldn't advocate people to actually chase cheaters apa semua lah. Cuma what we have in our faculty is we take some control procedures, what we call it, strategies lah. Use university login. We've been using honor pledge. Honor pledge means they need to write down, they need to agree. Aku janji lah, aku janji takkan meniru, something like that. You get a statement, you got to sign it. We receive complaints, kata lecturer kata macam, alah, ada orang ni sign ni pun still meniru juga. Well, yes, but if we were looking at the whole as a whole, kita dapat actually introducing honor pledge, kita dapat reduce the cheating by significant percentage. We might not be able to totally eliminate cheating, but hey, you know what? If you can reduce cheating by 10%, 20%, 30%, why not? By just simply, asking them to sign an honor pledge. So I think we should continue using that. I know we cannot totally, eliminate cheaters, but if you can reduce, why not use that? And most of this we covered today. This is an exam, open book, randomized, one question time, just enough. Students don't like this; they feel really pressured. So I wouldn't do this here. Okay, specific time. Yeah, I think these are. But more importantly, I think. As I mentioned before, this is like a closure lah. Designing higher order thinking skills, higher order thinking questions, academic integrity pledge, increasing assessment frequency. I think this is the best protection against all this CHAG, Course Hero, Google, Slader, Koofers, all this, inilah tempat yang student pergi untuk cheat. So what we are doing right now, I think I would say it's a really good way, excellent way to fight against cheating here. And again, how to combat cheating is usually it's not, we don't have like a be all and all, like a sword to just pancung all this. No, it's just a culture. When you have that culture, I think we can actually reduce cheating bit by bit. And in terms of assessment, create better question, create more frequent assessments, talk about academic integrity often to students. I think that's the best way to do this. Okay, thank you very much, moderator. I think that's how I would end my presentation. Sorry, I went past 8 minutes, but just want to talk about things. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Salahuddin, for the very interesting and informative presentations. I learned a lot from these presentations. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so now we come to Q&A sessions. If you have questions, is there any question? Ada lagi tak? Dr. Salah, I have one question. I have one question, Dr. Salah. What's your opinion about structured oral examination, SOE? Do you have any experience conducting SOE before? And can we measure HOTS through structured oral examinations?
Acronym tadi SOE apa dia?
Structured oral structured oral examinations.
No, I think it's great. If you have a smaller size class, it will be a really great way to assess your students, because you can be really flexible, you can be responsive to students' questions. I think if you have that system going on right now, I think just go for it. I think you can. It's the same like this one, designing what kind of question which can assess their higher order thinking skills. But for me, is because my class is really very big. Even for 30 people, I don't think I can do something like that. But right now I have 60 students in my class. I don't know what happened in the last 2-3 years. We receive a lot of students, but that's for me is my challenge lah. So I don't look at it as an option for me. But if you think it works for you, works for your class size, go for it.
Okay.
It
depends on the numbers.
Depend on the numbers, because we have done something like that also for my lab classes. I gather like 5 or 6 students together and then ask them, assess them. Still, it requires a lot of time for me, because sometimes it will go on for like half an hour for 6 special students. To cover the whole class might take me days.
Yeah, that's true. ada soalan. We have
Oh, ada ya Dr. Hamdan.
Ada
SOA untuk
soalan.
engineering students. Okay.
Yes, we
Yeah.
have question in chat box.
I admit I don't know the best practices for that one yet. So maybe I'll just yang dulu macam pakai rendah je kot kan. Itu yang kelakabut tu. But yeah, thank you. I'll check them out. If you have any
From Dr. Yubin, how to control the student communicating with each other during the assessment? Sometimes if hot question, usually ramai yang jawab betul ataupun ramai yang jawab salah.
People communicating behind. Okay. I think this way. That is something that we cannot control. Maksudnya even if we use kan dalam Google Chrome dia ada macam you cannot open other tab lah, and then there are some exam solutions where you log into that and then you can
exam
look at other
browsers.
stuff. Exam, yeah, but again they can use other device, you know, or sometimes if they're living at a college, they're practically in the same room.
Yes,
So this is something that you students communicating with each other is something that you cannot control. So I wouldn't look into that, but I will try to look into how students can provide their own personal answer to the question. Contoh, there's this book here, Creating Wicked Students. Okay, at the end of the chapter, they have a question, a final exam where the lecturer asks for macam a reflection. Basically, the final exam is just a reflection. I'm quoting from the book. I want you to write about one thing that you figured out in this class that matters. It could be anything, but I don't care what it is that matters as long as it truly does matter to you. I bring out this example is because it's a type of a personalized question. It's really hard for you to get two same answers from same students, or else kalau dia orang buat pun obvious lah. So try to find a way that you will get personal answer from students. This kind of personalization thing, especially it can be done for science-based exams too. Especially when you ask them for what's your approach to this method, an open-ended question. So it will be really obvious if two students are working with each other, because then the step by step will be the same and everything the same. So it's one way to actually catch students also, and I managed to catch students that way too. But yeah, but the point is, I think let's try to think of way that you can get something personal from the students and put into the questions.
All right. Okay, thank you again. Thank you very
That's
much.
my opinion lah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dr. Salah. Okay. So we come to end part of our presentations. On behalf of our TDSK office, I would like to thanks again Dr. Salah for your informative and interesting presentations, and also thanks to the audience for your participation. I hope this presentation will be beneficial for everybody.
Oh,
Right.
sorry, ada question answer
Ada lagi.
jawapan ni.
Okay,
Jawapan
yes.
Alice tadi.
Aha,
Okay,
the answer.
Okay lah. The answer. Okay. Answer. Alamak, mana pen saya kejap. Okay. So kita ada
Yeah.
tiba jadi kelas lah. Okay. So Alice is looking at Bob. Alice is married. And Bob is looking at Charlie. And Charlie is not married. Okay. So sekarang ni is a married person looking at an unmarried person. Okay, sekarang kita tahu A dengan C je. Kita tak tahu B ni whether it's married or unmarried. Okay, there are two possible situations here. If B is married, then married person looking at an unmarried person. So this is true, right? If B is married, then B is looking at an unmarried person. True. Okay. Katakanlah B tak married. So, in this case, is a married person looking at an unmarried person? Yes. A married person is looking at an B unmarried person. So, whether B is unmarried or married, this is always true. So, the correct answer is yes. Okay.
Alright.
Soalan nombor 2 saya cepat sikit. Which answer is correct? This one. All of the below, ya ke? All of the below cannot, because kalau all the below ni must be true also. So it cannot be all of the below but none of the below. So this one cannot be the answer. Tak boleh. No. None of the below. So none of the below maksudnya none of the above pun. So maksudnya tak siapa betul. Maksudnya none of the below. Ini semua salah. So atas dia betul. So tak boleh juga sebab dalam antara betul antara jawapannya ialah all of the above. So it cannot be none of the below and all of the above at the same time. So ini pun tak betul. All of the above tak boleh sebab kita dah prove by logic this one is salah, this one is salah. So this one is also salah. One of the above cannot be because we have decided that this is logically that this is wrong, and this is also wrong. So cannot be one of the above pun. So this is salah. None of the above. Hey, macam betul none of the above. So let's leave that. And the bawah ni none of the above. Tak boleh because if this is true, then if this is true, then this is cannot be true. If this is cannot be true, then this is true. So the answer is this one, E. None of the above. Itu je. Okay, sekian. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Tasana. Alright. So with that, before I end, I would like to share a quote and saying from Adam Leader. Okay, life not a multiple choice test, and it has always been an open book essay exam. Let's think about it. Alright, thank you. With that, thank you very much, Dr. Salah. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, everyone.
Terima kasih semua. Thank you, everyone.
Salah.
Please don't
Raj.
forget
Thank you, everyone.
to fill in the registration form for the attendance. Okay, for the
Alright.
Alright, thank
Nice
you.
conclusion indeed. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Salah.
Alright. Saya leave
Alright.